Like a Dragon Ishin is a terrible remaster. Now before any RGG fanboys get triggered by that statement, let me clarify. In my opinion, you may not agree with me, but I'm making this video to vent my frustrations and why I hate this game. Now it saddens me to say this because I really do enjoy playing all of RGG Studios games from Yakuza 0 to the latest Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. That also includes me playing the spin-offs like Judgment and Lost Judgment. But Ishin was the first game that bored me to the point where I don't even feel compelled to complete the story for it. I'll eventually probably complete it. It is just that it doesn't interest me at all. Now I do believe I have a personal bias as to why I don't like this game. It is probably because it's set in the Bakumatsu era, or the 1860s Japan era. At first I was intrigued with the settings when it showed off the cool samurai shogun moves you can do with the sword, as well as being able to equip a gun and use that as an advantage against the enemies at long range, or cheese them since apparently Kiryu over here doesn't need to reload at all and can infinitely rapid fire his pistol or revolver. But there are so many other disappointing elements that annoy me when I try to play this game. Let's get into it. What I'm referring to is the lack of feeling of deadly combat when in free roam or in side stories. You don't feel like you actually do any damage to the enemies when dealing with encounters, because at the end of every encounter the enemies just appear hurt and they have no scratches on them, even though the characters are playing with guns and swords and even spears at times. I would have loved it if they added a special dialogue or consequences if you did a deadly heat action that caused a one-hit kill, like I don't know, you stabbed an enemy in the stomach or threw them in a river, but instead after you defeat the enemies they respawn and the loot just drops around them. Now speaking of combat, what I really don't like about it is the inability to switch stances during mid-animation of an action. What I mean is that if I'm currently in a sword stance I cannot change to a dual wielding stance mid-button action or even when I'm guarding, thus resulting me in having to actually stop what I'm doing just so I can switch stance, leaving me vulnerable for an attack. What is also frustrating is when I have to heal myself. I have to pause the game and select heals from inventory, but I really cannot fault them as this was the norm in the older Yakuza games. I gotta say though that the trooper card system, especially the ones that heal you or give you extra health, really does help alleviate the pain, but there's also a caveat to that system in which you have to stay in that stance and constantly attack the enemies in order to charge up your ability so you can use it. The formations of the troopers is a really good idea, but I don't really like having to deal with promoting them or fusing troopers, and I wish that was all automatic. That is why you can see me rocking the DLC troopers in my formation, because I don't really want to deal with that system too much. Now let's move on to the missing features that could have improved the quality of life of this game. The waypoint system in this game is crap. All it does is just places a green marker on the map. You cannot even place it anywhere and you can only place it on a certain landmark. For example, the blacksmith, the pharmacy, or the prawn shop. The green marker does appear on the minimap, but it doesn't give you a path you can follow to go to it, thus making you having to actually have to find your own way to get to the location, defeating the purpose of the waypoint. The other thing is that side stories is also a problem. The encounters mainly, because they are all invisible, resulting in you accidentally triggering them in a time where you might not actually want to do them right now, ending up in you forgetting what you're supposed to do half the time. Sometimes you can't even skip the dialogue options. You have to actually wait till the dialogue options are done in order for you to actually decline the side quest. This problem could have been easily fixed if they presented all the side quests on the map, so if you want to do a side quest you can go to it. It would also help me a lot since I like to do side quests before the main story so I can feel OP when it comes to the story. Resource gathering is random, making it hard to craft the item you really want to make unless you actively grind for materials in the dungeon or dish out tons of money for materials at the blacksmith's shop just so you can craft the item you really want to make. I'm not opposed to having dungeons, but still, it's just quite annoying to do. Not to mention that some of the crafting items you cannot even do unless you have unlocked them in the skill tree, like this ammo I'm trying to make. Another thing is that healing items take up space in your inventory. Similar to the older Yakuza games, why didn't they at least update this so that they can reflect the modern games? Because this old system is quite frustrating since it takes up room for other items that could be of importance. Let's move on to another life side content, a minigame section in which you meet Haruka. You end up living in a house with her to help pay off her debt. I enjoyed this type of side content for the fact that you can actually earn a ton of money fairly quickly, but I do think it has its own downsides. Now I like this idea, but there are tons of ways in which they could have improved upon this side content. Let's take a look at the orders you can do to earn some extra money. What is annoying about this is that you never know what you need to collect beforehand. Thus you have to constantly make notes every time you view the order list so you don't forget something if you don't have a certain item already. Let's say an order may come in requiring you to obtain a certain fish, for example a marlin, and to do this you have to actually do a fishing mini game. The problem here is that it's so boring and repetitive. You have to actually look up where the fish is and what they look like in order to secure the right fish. It's easy, I'm not gonna lie to you about that, but having to constantly watch an animation to throw a lead in a pond to also watching an animation of a fish being caught causes it to become really repetitive. Not to mention, if you throw the bait at the wrong location you cannot move your reel at all, leading you to have to recast it. I wish they made this minigame more fun. One change could have been to make it so that you can access your bait without having to retrieve them from the storage, and lastly make it so you can attract the fish towards the bait without having to reset the wire bait again. These few changes alone could have easily improved the fishing minigame. The cooking minigame is another thing you can do in Haruka's house. It's essentially like Cooking Mama. It suffers from the same repetitiveness like the fishing bowling minigame, but this time you have to constantly talk to Haruka to make it so that you can actually make a single bowl. It's just too much clutter that could have been optimized for better quality of life. Maybe instead of cooking each bowl one by one, how about just add another bowl at the end of the result and then double the ingredients it would cost to make it. Same goes if you want to make 3 or 4, as this would effectively speed up things. Instead of having to talk to Haruka constantly, I want to include this segment into this video to express my thoughts on the newest Ubisoft game. This is Assassin's Creed Shadows. Now, watching the trailer for this, I at first thought Ubisoft would go back to its roots and make a cool stealth oriented story. I'm not opposed to a female shinobi being a main character as long as she is not Mary Sue, but what isn't bugging me is the addition of the second main character being Yosuke or Yusake. This is the first time Ubisoft decided to break Assassin's Creed tradition and give us a historical person as a playable character according to sources. I don't mind the inclusion of him since it's just a game, but every person that has a brain all knows why they included him as a center role. Hint ESG. Yes, Ubisoft being a Western game developer that is in bed with Sweet Baby Inc., it already conveys to me that it's going to be doomed at launch. It's a clear death mark knowing that the story will become a huge paid product used to push the message that is currently spreading rapidly like cancer, which is ruining good IPs. Now, I would have to say that if I have to choose between these two games, I would say Like a Dragon Ishin would be more appealing to me since the developers are Japanese. They are currently not affected by all this ESG DEI infection that's going on spreading across all the Western video games in the current modern day period. Therefore, I know for a fact that this game doesn't push any far left agenda that would stunt developers with their original intended story and creative ideas. I am currently interested in Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut that has just been ported to PC. It is also set in olden times just like a Dragon Ishin, but since this game is developed with AAA quality and has the polishes / fixes from being out on PlayStation first, I never gotten to play this game before, and judging from the reviews disregarding the stupid review bombing with the forced requirement of signing up for a PlayStation account or logging in with an existing account, it looks like it would be a good story. But as for right now, I'm going to wait for a sale on this since I don't want to pay full price for a game that's technically been out for 4 years. But I'm not opposed to Sony selling this game at full price knowing full well people will pay for it, which is a smart business move in my opinion. Since this game's a story based game mainly, I'm in no rush to cop this game at full price. Overall, I think although these games are probably set in different time periods during the olden days of the Japan era, in which I'm not really a huge fan of, but I don't mind playing them as long as they slightly pique my interest, just like a Dragon Ishin did at first. But I would recommend getting Ghost of Tsushima out there, even though it's made by a Western game developer, Sucker Punch Productions. This was made before the whole woke era of gaming. I would recommend this game because I think it's more interesting, visually appealing, and fun compared to the other two games. I'm assuming the game is also well optimized for PC, since I haven't heard any controversy regarding performance for this game at all. Well, I want to say thanks for listening to my ramblings regarding 3 different types of games that have one thing in common, and that is sword gameplay. I just want to reiterate that I don't hate Like a Dragon Ishin, and just want to express my disappointment with the game with its lack of improvements for being a remaster. Anyways, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe for more of this content in the future. Bye for now.